The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Market Fantasy. They bring new offer for new customers. Play just $5, give $5 bonus funds. Use the promo code SGPN. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It's currently Saturday evening, September 20th, around 6 p.m. Eastern. I'm Russ, always Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Time to get into the quarterfinal matches taking place in Chengdu and Hangzhou. So break down those matchups in a second. Before we get into the recap of the last episode and before we get into the actual preview of the upcoming matches, a reminder, you can support the show by liking and subscribing on YouTube. And a reminder, you can also find the podcast audio only on Spotify and Apple. So if you check it out that way too, that's fine. Leave a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple. And once again on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, check out the merch store. A lot of great content in the merch store. We have a lot of great tennis stuff. We have shirts, sweatshirts, and mugs. Check it out. Different colors, very affordable and very comfortable. So check out all the merchandise we have for the tennis show. Plus, a reminder, we also have all the picks and podcasts available easily to find on SGPN. Check out the app. We have our own app free to download on the App Store. So once again, if you want to offer free picks and podcasts and props, check out the SGPN app in the App Store for free. So once again, make sure you do that sooner rather than later. Anyway, getting into the recap of what happened for the last episode. Overall, not good for the Lock and Dog. Took two guys to win in straight sets, and it did not work out. For the Lock, we had Norrie in straight sets, as he ended up losing outright as a minus 500 favorite. Won the first set, then went behind a break early in the second, and then eventually did lose outright. So scam Norrie back at it again, as he ended up losing to a guy who had not won an ATP match in about a year. So not a good showing there by Norrie. For the Dog, pretty annoying loss there, as Perricard did win as he beat Misalic, but he won in 3 instead of 2. Had, I think it was 4 break points in the first set, choked them all away, then buried him in the second and third set. So either way, Perricard won the match. He just did not convert the break points in the first set. Pick up a loss as he ended up winning in 3. So not a great start to the post-US Open campaign. Try to bounce back here in this episode. Now, looking at the actual recap of the matches that happened recently in the round of 16, starting off in Chengdu, decent amount of drama with the exception of the first match. So Basilashvili, who ended up beating McDonald in straight sets. Then you had some chaos. You had Daniel, who ended up beating Griekspoor. I believe Daniel was down a set and faced break point late in the second set. Fought it off, got the break, and then eventually did win the third set. Griekspoor's questioned his fitness recently, and it wasn't very good, as Daniel got the job done there in a nice comeback win. Musetti ended up beating Prismic, first match back post-US Open, and it was fun, won 3 sets, but Musetti kind of dominated the third set as he won 6-2 in the final set. And then the last match ended up having Shevchenko against Perricard, as Shevchenko did win in 3. First 2 sets went to tie breaks with no breakers, then Shevchenko broke immediately in the third. Shout out to Perricard, who recorded 0 breakpoint chances in 3 sets against Shevchenko. That's how bad he is at returning. But either way, Perricard ended up not getting a single breakpoint chance against Shevchenko, and there you go. So nice win there for Shevchenko. I believe pre-tournament, he was 250-1, and now he's in the quarters. So we'll see what happens, but nice job by him beating Perricard in that 3-set battle. For Hangzhou, you ended up having the match of the entire week so far between Moutet and Kaza, which took roughly 4 hours. Took 3 hours and 48 minutes on hard court, and Moutet eventually did win in a final set tiebreak. Absolute war. Moutet fought off 2 match points in the 4-5 service game in the third set. Fought him off, won the breaker. An absolute war. A reminder, Moutet plays again today, or I should say plays again on Sunday morning, so he might be exhausted. We'll see if he has anything left in the tank, but either way, nice win by Moutet to survive the marathon and to outlast Kaza. Besides that, you saw Chiveri beat Chikata in straight sets, saw Korda lose after winning the first set, as Wu ended up coming back and winning in 3. Nice crowd support, but looking sharp so far, and he was able to get the job done. Korda kind of mentally checked out towards the end of the third set, but Wu looked great, and Wu was able to bounce back. Very good player, when healthy. Happy to see him healthy, and he looked good. So nice job by Yibing to come back and get the job done here against Korda. You saw Royer upset Rublev in straight sets, 6-4, 7-6. Classic Rublev being an idiot. I mean, Royer did play very well. I'm not going to take that away from him, but I think we'd all agree Rublev being a massive favorite, losing in straight sets, feels kind of on brand for Rublev, number one seed in the event, losing as a minus 450 favorite in straight sets. Not exactly ideal, losing to a qualifier. So Bublik, who I thought might withdraw from the event after ended up retiring in his match against Kwon in the Davis Cup, he looked very good in his match against Vukic. Did lose the first set, but he did not face a break point in all three sets. So he looked very good. Vukic was able to get the job done in the breaker. I believe Bublik had 2 set points in that first set. So he could have won in straight sets. It was 1 break point. But point is, Vukic won the first set, then Bublik took over, and he served very well. So nice job by Bublik getting the job done there in 3. Then you had the Cinderella run, which continued as you ended up seeing. I looked up how to pronounce the name, and I forgot how to actually do it. So I'm actually going to Google it because I want to make sure I don't butcher his name. But Zhang, the defending runner-up, ended up winning his first-round match against Bu. Then he ended up being a favorite in the second round, lost, so not exactly a great showing by him there. Not going to roast him too much because he came back from injury. Most people thought he was going to lose in the first round because he was, a reminder, a massive dog in his first match against Bu. Got the job done. Looking up the pronunciation, Svechina? That's what I got. Svechina? So I'll go with that. It might be completely wrong, but I Googled it, so we're going to go with it. But nice job by Svechina, who was able to continue his Cinderella run as a lucky loser, as he ended up losing in qualifying to Zeppieri, then beat Berrettini, and beat Zhang. 2 guys, who, don't get me wrong, it looks impressive on paper. A reminder, neither guy played much tennis for the last couple of months. Berrettini came back from Wimbledon and got destroyed. And then you saw Zhang play a marathon against Bu, and he was up a break, I believe, in the first set, then fell apart. But nice job by Svechina, and we'll see if he can keep it going moving forward. But still, a nice performance by him as a lucky loser. We'll see if he can outlast Bublik in that quarterfinal matchup. I see a couple of you stopping by. Joe mentioning the Laver Cup. I saw Zverev did lose to de Minaur, had a breakdown there in the late stages of the second set, complained about a let, which nobody heard, and then he gave up the point and then eventually got broken. So, yeah, he started yelling at the chair umpire, and it was a classic Zverev meltdown. Still a clown. Doesn't matter what the event is. Still a clown. But either way, I see Prince mentioning that Korda's cost him for the second time. Korda's a guy who I added to the clown list long ago, and he's a guy who I have kind of sworn off betting. He did make me some money when I ended up backing him against Kaboli in the final of DC last year, but I've never been a Korda guy. I think he is a very mentally weak player, and we saw that unfold with the crowd being against Korda in China, and he wasn't handling it too well, as he ended up kind of self-destructing there in the third set. But Laver Cup stuff, I don't care about because it's meaningless. But either way, Zverev did lose to him an hour in straight sets. Pretty funny if you watched him melt down again. But either way, a point is for the matchup so far in Chengdu and Hangzhou, decent amount of 3-setters, decent amount of drama involved. But either way, a point is looking forward to the matchups in the quarters. And hopefully we end up getting a decent amount of competitive matchups on Saturday night and Sunday morning. Anyway, it's going to wrap it up for the recap of the matches that we ended up seeing over the last basically 24 hours. Time to move on into the actual preview of the quarters in Chengdu and Hangzhou. A reminder, we're going to do Chengdu first based on chronological order. That does start about half an hour before Hangzhou, I believe. Looking at the calendar, it starts at 1 a.m., and you have Hangzhou starting at 1:30. So we're going to do Chengdu first before we get into any of the preview for the 8 matches. A reminder that we are brought to you by our sponsor, MyBookie.ag. Using to bet on a bunch of different sports. They have football. They have prop builders as well. So you can build a bunch of different props for different sports. Check it out. They have a simple motto, bet on anything, anywhere, anytime. You can use crypto for deposits and payouts when you sign up for a new account. Use the promo code SGPN, the 100% bet back bonus, $500 for new customers. MyBookie.ag promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Novig, which is America's number 1 sports future market. Since Novig is an exchange, be getting great prices. And a reminder, check out Novig. It's available in 35 states. Download the app, get $50 and you spend just $5. Use promo code SGPN, get on the action with Novig, promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finish recapping what happened in the round of 16. Time to move on into the quarterfinals, starting off in Chengdu. First matchup, you have Tabilo taking on O'Connell. For this one, you have Tabilo at minus 188. You have O'Connell at around plus 160. For the spread, you have minus 2.5 for Tabilo, plus 2.5 for O'Connell. The over-under is at 23.5. For the set spread, you have O'Connell to win a set at minus 170. Tabilo to win in straight sets is at plus 132. The over 2.5 sets is plus 128. They actually faced off last week, kinda. I'll put an asterisk next to it. Faced off in China, actually, in the challenger right before this. The problem was they played 3 games. And then O'Connell said, you know what, I don't feel well, and he quit. So nothing to go by that one, but it is a rematch technically. To be able to get the win, they played 3 games, they were on serve, nothing to read into, but O'Connell did end up getting injured, and he ended up quitting. So for the actual path so far, both guys have looked good. O'Connell did end up beating Hallis in 3 and beat Zhu in straight sets. Zhu, of course, off the upset win against Nori, but still a pretty favorable draw for him in that second round. For Tabilo, he's been very good. Beat Thompson in straight sets and ended up beating Darderi in straight sets. Also ended up beating Harris in qualifying and Reichel in qualifying, but beating Harris and Thompson and Darderi back-to-back-to-back, pretty good. Winning the last 2 matches there in straight sets. I think he should be favored. I think he's the better player, and I think that based on form, he's better than O'Connell. I think Tabilo's serve has been quite underrated so far in the event. The issue for Tabilo has been health, but since coming back from injury, he's looked pretty solid, made a pretty good run there in that challenger I just mentioned a second ago that O'Connell retired in. He looked good in that event, showed up in Chengdu, and including qualifying, dropped 1 set. I think he should win for the head-to-head. If you want to ignore that meeting they had about a week ago, they faced off on hard court 2 years ago. Tabilo did win in 3 in Indian Wells. Faced off in Monte Carlo last year on clay. Tabilo did win in straight sets. I think that O'Connell is fine, but I think Tabilo is the better player. So based on that, I'll go with Tabilo minus 2.5. He's looked very sharp. It has not been a fluky, dominant performance so far for Tabilo in the event. He's definitely looked the part. For O'Connell, we know Hallis has been very up and down this season, and the fact is he lost the first set, came back and won in 3. And Zhu is an average challenger player who he was fortunate to play against in the second round, and he buried. So for me, give me Tabilo in this one. Think he'll be able to outlast O'Connell in the rallies. We know Tabilo is not afraid of really just taking pace off the ball and injecting pace when he needs it. I think the lack of, I'd say, predictability for Tabilo is going to really frustrate O'Connell. O'Connell, one-handed backhand and all, does like to kind of stick with one game plan only and doesn't really venture away from it. I think the variety is going to be too much for O'Connell here. Give me Tabilo minus the 2.5 games here as my favorite play for this one. Moving on to the next matchup, you have 2 Americans going at it. You have Nakashima taking on Giron. Nakashima minus 220. Giron is plus 180. For the spread, I see minus 2.5 for Nakashima, plus 2.5 for Giron. The over-under is at 23.5. Set spread, you have Giron to win a set at minus 155. You have Nakashima to win straight sets at plus 121. And the over 2.5 sets is around plus 130. So, look at the head-to-head here. You're looking at it being somewhat competitive. We know Nakashima ended up beating Giron in the last meeting in straight sets. Every meeting, though, happened in 2022 or before that. So, very dated. Can't really use it, but Nakashima is up 2-1 in the head-to-head, and you're looking at Giron winning at least 1 set in 2 of the 3. So it's very dated, but Giron's been competitive in the matchup. So now looking at the path so far, Nakashima has been fine, had a bye, ended up beating Shang in straight sets. Competitive first set, but either way, Nakashima got the job done, had 13 aces, no double faults, and he was able to outlast Shang. Now for Giron, he was in really bad form for a couple months. Then he won that marathon against Navone in the US Open. Then he choked away a 2-set lead to Bonzi in the second round. Then he showed up here, beat Quinn, and beat Sonego in straight sets. So he's been in good form. I think that Nakashima should win, better serve, but I don't mind the team total over for Nakashima. In this one, I think you're looking at what could be a close matchup. Said before, 2 of the 3 meetings, despite being dated, did go to a deciding set. I think Giron, with his consistency and his overall, I'd say, rally tolerance, can force errors from Nakashima, and Nakashima's firepower can end points quickly. I see a balancing act here. I think Nakashima does win, but I do think that a team total of 12.5 or 13 feels pretty cheap to me. I'll go with the over there. Think he'll end up winning, but I see a breaker, maybe a 3-setter. Give me Nakashima, team total over as my thought for this one. Moving on to the next matchup, looking at the matchup between Musetti and Basilashvili, a Wimbledon rematch, actually, from this past year. So Musetti is minus 260. You have Basilashvili, who is around plus 115. For the spread, you have Musetti minus 3.5. Basilashvili is plus 3.5. The over-under is 21.5 or 22.5. For the set spread, you have Musetti in straight sets at plus 105. Basilashvili to win a set is minus 135. The over 2.5 sets is a plus 140. Said before, face up in Wimbledon, and we saw Basilashvili actually beat him in 4 as he ended up winning and looked good throughout the entire match. Now, they faced off one time on hard court. It was in Paris 2022. Musetti won in straight sets. Basilashvili has won both meetings on grass, so he is ahead 2-1 head-to-head, but it's dated, and the one that isn't was on grass, so you can't really use it, but still. Musetti, though, played one match in the event so far, had a marathon against Prismic, very entertaining, very fun, and Musetti got the job done there in 3. Basilashvili went through qualifying, been good. Beat Sakamoto in 3, beat Tomic in 3, then he showed up here in the main draw and dominated. Beat Harris in straight sets and ended up beating McDonald in straight sets. So he's playing very well. He's been good in the head-to-head. And Musetti, we know, had a good run in the U.S. Open. He ended up winning 4 matches and lost to Sinner. But I think Prismic showed that he can be vulnerable at times. Basilashvili has some firepower. We know that injuries can be a problem for him. But when healthy, he was a former top 20, top 30 guy. He's a good player. I think it's going to be close. I like the over 2.5 sets here. I think it should be a fun matchup. I think you're looking at maybe an upset in the cards, actually. I think 260 feels pretty expensive for Musetti. He might win. If you want to go for him, though, I don't mind the team total at 12.5 minus 130. I think Basilashvili, though, should win a set. I don't mind the plus 1.5 sets here at minus 135. I think I'll go with that. Give me Musetti in 3, but I think Basilashvili can win this outright. Wouldn't shock me. But give me Musetti team total over 12.5 for this one. Moving on to the last match for Chengdu quarterfinals, looking at Daniel taking on Shevchenko. For this one, basically a pick'em, minus 110 both sides. For the over-under, I see 22.5. For the set spread, I see minus 1.5 sets for Shevchenko at 2-1. See minus 1.5 sets for Daniel at plus 222. The over 2.5 sets is around plus 130. So Shevchenko was able to get the job done against Pericard in 3. Beat Monfils in the first round with a retirement because Monfils ended up rolling his ankle and ended up having to quit. Daniel, though, had a nice qualifying run, beating Duckworth and Billy Harris in straight sets. Then he beat Coleman Wong, ended up beating Greek Sport in 3 on the ropes against Greek Sport, as once again he's facing a break point late down a set, and he potentially was about a minute away from losing. Then he ended up fighting it off, got the break, won the match. So nice job by him. I think it's going to be a war. I think both guys are pretty similar, pretty streaky. Both guys do like to stand behind the baseline, really don't come forward that much. You could argue Daniel has crowd support, but he really doesn't because it's still a different Asian country. You could argue that they're going to support him anyway because I don't think there's going to be many Kazakhs in attendance, but either way, point is, I think it's going to be a close matchup. I think both guys can really do similar things. I think I'll go Shevchenko on this one. I think Daniel was fortunate to beat Greek Sport. The fact is, Greek Sport's conditioning is still very poor. And you're looking at Shevchenko, who served well against Pericard. Pericard might be an awful returner, but the fact is Shevchenko was able to survive some adversity, beat Monfils in the first round. I'll go Shevchenko, but it's really a coin flip. I think minus 110 sounds exactly right for this matchup. So give me the over instead. If you're going to give me a pick'em, give me the over. I think it's a good way of picking both guys to have moments. Maybe a Caesar same-game parlay, which I've given out before. Team total over 12.5 for both guys. Parlay that together. I see it being a war. I'll pick Shevchenko in 3, but I don't feel great about it if I am being honest. Moving on to Hangzhou for the other matches taking place on either Saturday night or Sunday morning. Starting off with the first match, you have Moutet taking on Etcheverry. For this one, Etcheverry is decent favorite. He's about minus 150. Moutet's around plus 130. For the spread for games, minus 1.5 to minus 115 for Etcheverry. Plus 1.5 to minus 105 for Moutet. The over-under in games is at 23.5. Set spread, Etcheverry straight sets plus 175. Moutet to win straight sets plus 285. The over 2.5 sets is around plus 125. Now, it is worth mentioning that you are looking at what has been a very difficult spot for Moutet because he showed up for the event and he won but at what cost? He had to play roughly 4 hours in his first match post-Davis Cup action, and he has no day off. So after a 4-hour ordeal, he's got to play Etcheverry, who has not dropped a set yet. Ended up beating DeZumer in straight sets and beat Chikata in straight sets. Etcheverry, his match, took an hour and 28. So he spent roughly 3.5 hours less on court than Moutet did in the round of 16. It's a really bad spot for Moutet. Now, Etcheverry is also undefeated against Moutet in the head-to-head. I will point out, though, both meetings were on clay, so can't really use it, but they were both this year. So Etcheverry is 2-0 against Moutet this season. Both of them, though, were on clay. It's a really bad spot for Moutet. If they were at full strength with the same amount of rest period, I would probably pick Moutet. But in reality, after a 4-hour marathon, I can't pick you with no day off in between. If you had a day to get a breather in, maybe skip practice, try to recover, then maybe I'd pick you. But 4 hours playing again the next day against a guy who played 3 hours, give or take, less on court, 2 hours less than you on court, I mean, it's a mess for a spot for Moutet. It's really bad. I'll go Etcheverry in this one. I think Moutet's the better hardcore player, but I think that for the spot alone, give me Etcheverry. I think Moutet might run on fumes. And if this goes 3, I have to question his fitness as this match goes along. So give me Etcheverry in this one. I thought about taking it, actually, as a lock or dog play, but stayed away from it instead, because I'm not really sold that Etcheverry is a hardcore player, but I think the spot alone is worth something. Give me Etcheverry, minus 150 for this one, or maybe the minus 1.5 to save 35 cents of juice. Moving on to the next matchup, going to look at Medvedev taking on Wu. So for this one, Medvedev's minus 360, Wu's around plus 280. For the spread, you have minus 4.5 for Medvedev at plus 125. You have Wu plus 4.5 games, minus 144. For the over-under, I see 21.5 games. And for the set spread, Medvedev straight sets is minus 120. Wu to win a set is minus 110. The over 2.5 sets is plus 165. Faced off this year, actually, as it ended up facing off in DC, and Medvedev won in straight sets. Really never in doubt, ended up winning 6-3, 6-2. Faced off also in the US Open about 3 years ago. Medvedev won in 3. None of the sets took more than 10 games. So 5 career sets, all on hard court, all dominated by Medvedev. He looked good in his first match with the new coaching staff, beating Basaveretti handily in straight sets. For Wu, look, anytime he's playing, I'm happy because he's a very fun player and he's never healthy. Beat Korda in 3, beat Mannarino in 3. The thing is, he did have a day off after beating Mannarino, and I think that helped them against Korda. The problem is when you've had that many injuries and you're playing back-to-back days, I do question if Wu's body will hold up properly. The match wasn't that long. It was an hour and 49, so it wasn't nearly as long as the Moutet one. But Medvedev looked good. Now, you could argue that Medvedev, we know, is very vulnerable always to lose a set, get upset because he's been a head case for the last 2+ years. But I was intrigued by the coaching change, which I was asking Medvedev to do for a year. He finally did it, and he was really good against Basaveretti, beating him 6-2, 6-3. Wu looked very good, though, with the firepower against Korda in that third set, and it's going to be the script for him to win. He really can outlast Medvedev in these rallies, especially after playing and having to play back-to-back days. I think Wu's going to have to go for it. Will it work out with the crowd? Maybe. You might see Medvedev feed off the crowd, being, of course, the villain that he is, but I think Medvedev wins in straight sets. I think Wu makes one set close, maybe a breaker in there. In reality, with the poor form he was in, entering DC onward, he still buried Wu in straight sets in DC before choking to Moutet later on in the event. But he was able to win all 5 sets handily. I think it's a bad matchup for Wu. I think Wu needs to unload on both wings, try to take some risks, and Medvedev, we know, with his court coverage and his overall rally tolerance, should be a really bad matchup for Wu. Wu can potentially pull this off. If he does, good for him. I don't see it personally. Medvedev maybe can win the event. We'll see. But give me Medvedev in straight sets here at minus 120. I think it's a pretty cheap price for a guy that is 5-0 in sets against the opponent. So give me Medvedev in straight sets here at minus 120. Now, for the other matchups, we have 2 more. We have the Tian match against Royer, and we have the, once again, Sverchina taking on Bublik match. We are going to skip both and save them for the lock and dog picks. But once again, it's going to wrap it up for the actual matches that are not going to be lock and dog picks for the quarters. Time to move on into the final two plays. Before we get into the lock and dog, reminder, they're brought to you by our sponsor, Arctic Fantasy. Use them to play pick'em entries. Win 500 times your entry. Pick higher or lower on your favorite player stats. And a reminder, they have a brand new offer for new customers. Play just $5, gives you $1 bonus funds. Use promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Check out their models for college football and for the NFL. Off to a great start. They have a new leaderboard with weekly cash prizes just for tracking your bets in the app. Track 5 bets of the same type for any model. You build and you can win $1K. The bets do not have to win. Just track your bets and you are entered into the giveaway. Also, when you sign up for a new account with Rhythm, use the promo code SGPN25 to get a quarter off the app for the first month. Download Rhythm and use the promo code SGPN25 for a quarter off your purchase for the first month. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the quarters for Chengdu and for Hangzhou. Time to move on into the lock and dog picks. So I skipped 2 matches in Hangzhou by coincidence. I'm going to go with the Bublik straight set play as my lock at minus 115. Now, once again, credit where it's due. You're looking at Svechina, who's been good so far in the event, but he was a lucky loser who had a pretty decent draw in hindsight. Berrettini was coming off of a long layoff, not playing since Wimbledon. He looked really bad in the match. And Zhang was off a long layoff too, beat Bu, who I'm not the biggest fan of in general, and then Zhang ended up kind of no-showing the match as well. So Bublik had a 3-setter against Vukic. I had injury question marks with him because he got injured in the Davis Cup, had to retire mid-match against Kwon, but he looked good against Vukic. Did drop a set. He had a set point in that one. 0 break points faced. So we know Bublik's serve is very dangerous, and the fact is I think he'll be able to force enough breakpoint chances against his opponent here. You're looking at Svechina, who's really not a good server, and I think you're looking at a good opportunity for Bublik to force the issue, get some breakpoint chances, and find ways to create pressure, which will eventually make his opponent blink. Now, Vukic did not get broken many times in that first round match, or the first match in general, but Bublik had 24 aces, 0 breakpoints faced, and he forced 10 breakpoint chances. Vukic isn't a very good player, in my opinion, but his best attribute's his serve, and the fact is he did force 10 breakpoints. I think you're looking at a good spot for Bublik. I think the price is pretty cheap. I get that you can argue Bublik can let go of a set if he ends up having a bit of a mental lapse, and you're looking at Svechina, who's been very good behind the baseline with his consistency. The fact is, though, Bublik, we know, even going into the U.S. Open, was in great form, won multiple clay titles, carried it over into the U.S. Open, ended up making a good run, lost to Sinner. It happens, but the point is he's been in good form for the last couple months. I'll trust him here against a lucky loser, a very cheap price for the much better server on fast courts. Give me Bublik in straight sets here at minus 115 as my lock. For my dog, I'm going to go with the marathon prediction here between Royer and Tien. Give me the over 2.5 sets at plus 143. Now, Royer was able to beat Bublik in straight sets with a breaker in there, but that was the only match recently that he's won in straight sets. Looking at his matchups, including qualifying, 2 of the last 3 involved him losing at least 1 set. So Royer has not been dominant. He had 1 great showing against Rublev on Saturday morning, but I do think Rublev's also a clown. It was close, but I think that stylistically, both players are quite different. Royer was trying to go blow for blow with Rublev with the firepower. Tien is more patient. He has more rally tolerance, and I do think you're looking at a good script for both guys to have moments. Tien has been dropping sets, has lost at least 1 set in 3 of his last 4 matches. I think you're going to see a pretty competitive battle between the two of them that might end up going the distance. Plus, you're looking at Royer, who's had a pretty interesting, I'd say, collection of results against lefties in particular recently. 5 straight Royer matches have not ended in straight sets. So Royer, when he's against lefties, tends to have, I'd say, mixed results, but there has been one common theme. He does win a set and lose a set constantly. So with the 5 straight in the trend department for Royer, I'll take it here. I think Royer will have a bit of a slip-up after the match against Rublev, but he still has firepower, can still force Tien into playing very defensively. On the other hand, Royer might go overboard and just punt away a bunch of points. Give me a balancing act between the two of them. Give me the over 2.5 sets as my dog for the show. So once again, the lock's going to be on Bublik straight sets against Svechina at minus 115. For the dog, I'm going to go with Royer and Tien over 2.5 sets at plus 143. It's going to wrap it up for the show. Back once again for the semis in Chengdu and Hangzhou. Till next time, I'm on Twitter, Reichel Radio. Good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.